Hello, everyone. My name is Aviana Calderon, and today I will be presenting the Desmos curriculum to you that is used in mathematics. So Desmos is a platform that actually my current district uses as our official mathematics curriculum. So it is, I guess you could say, our textbook, even though it is all digital. The Desmos platform that we have access to serves for Math 6, 7th, and 8, and it also has an Algebra 1 component for those 8th graders who are on the advanced track. So once on the platform, you will choose your designated grade. So for this project, I will be using Math 7 since that is the math that I'm most comfortable with. As I have stated previously, I have taught 7th grade for the past 8 years. Next year, I will be moving to Math 8, but I'm not fluent in those standards as I am with Math 7. So once on the home screen, you will click on your grade. And so I have clicked on Math 7. And then to the side, on the left side here, you can see that you have all of your units. So Unit 1 is scale drawings. Unit 2 is introducing proportional relationships. Unit 3 is measuring circles. Unit 4 is proportional relationships and percentages. Unit 5 is operations with positive and negative numbers. And then you can see Unit 6, 7, and 8 is also listed to the side. Now, these units typically don't align with the Georgia Performance Standards. Desmos has their own units. So sometimes you will have to bounce back between these units in order for it to work for your designated standard that you're currently working on. So my domain that I'm working on for the purpose of this course is going to be ratios, rates, and proportions. That is Unit 2. No, I'm sorry, that is Unit 3 for 7th grade math. But as you can see, for the Desmos, ratios and proportional relationships not only falls under Unit 2, it also falls under Unit 4. So let's take a look at Unit 4 and what that has to offer. So once you're on the Desmos platform, you will have the unit, and it says it should take this unit approximately 20 days. Now, that could be more or less depending on the types of students that you serve. If they're advanced, you might go through this pretty quickly. If they're your co-taught and your resource babies, then, you might have to work at a slower pace. So the 20 days is roughly the average, but you know your students best. It starts out with an overview of what is in the unit, your vocabulary that you're going to focus on for the unit. And it also has some paper resources. And then after that, each unit also comes with a readiness check. So the readiness check is your pre-test, if that is something that you use in your classroom. We are not required to give pre-test. So I personally don't use the readiness checks. I just like to get straight into the unit. And as you begin to teach and as the students begin to work, you can kind of see where they fall. And so that's the method that I prefer. And then going down, we have section 1 says percentages and as proportional relationships. We have section 2, which is applying percentages. And then we have our end unit assessments. So the end unit assessments would be your summative assessments. And then we also have additional resources, which are your practice test. So now I'm going to open up tax and tip. That's one of my favorite units, favorite standards to teach because it does give students a good overview of when they will use this math in the real world. So once you open up your lesson, it does have your learning goals. And so those are typically what you want to introduce to your students. Maybe write it on the board. What is the goal of this unit? So at the end of this unit, students should be able to calculate the original amount, the new amount, or the percent change in a context of sales tax and tip, including situations that involve multiple percent increases or decreases. You can also see that it addresses these standards right here. It also includes the standards of mathematical practice. So this lesson covers mathematical practice 1 and mathematical practice 8. Unfortunately, it's not up to date with the new Georgia Performance Standards. It does still represent the old standards. However, I did use this platform for the past year, and it does align really well with the new standards. You just kind of have to apply the standard yourself rather than the standard being given to you. Down here is the area where you are able to assign this lesson to a group of students. And so these are my students from last year. I had 4 classes, and you click on the dashboard and it will bring you to the teacher dashboard. And so here is our summary. So here is the snapshot of, to get started, take snapshots of student work. I didn't really use this area, but it is there for you if you would like. The summary includes pretty much the progress of your students. So at the top of the summary is each question, and then here we'll show you the dots mean that there was not a right or wrong answer. So therefore, it just says the dot means that they completed the question, but it might have been a point of view type of question. So therefore, there's not a right or wrong answer, or it's a writing component where the teacher has to go in and physically look at the student's answer of what they wrote to see if it's correct. Now, the check marks mean that the student attempted the question and they got it right. And then the X's mean that the student attempted the question, but they got it wrong. Then if you go to the teacher point of view, this is what the teacher sees. So if you are teaching this to your students, what I like to do is I like to have this teacher screen on the board. And a good thing about Desmos is that you can pace your class however you want. So what you would do, so say I'm beginning my lesson and I only want students to focus on questions 1 through 3, and that's it. What you would do is you would click this paste button right here, and you would actually click on the range of questions that you want them to focus on. And then you would click restrict to screens 1 through 3. So that means that the only questions that students have access to is questions 1 through 3. And then after they have finished questions 1 through 3, you as the teacher can go in and work those problems out. And as they're working, you can check their progress. It just helps to have a steady pace of the class and also not to overwhelm the students with seeing 25 questions. You chunk it and go from there. And so then that will be question 2. And then this will be question 3. And then that's all the students have access to at that time. When you're done, you'd click stop. The pacing is gone, and then you can click a new pacing. So then I would focus on questions 4 through 6. I would click restrict and go from there. And then now they only have access to questions 4 through 6, chunk that piece of information, review, and move on to the next. And then the last component is our student component. So this is where you can sort your students. Here it has it by last name, and you can see the individual student responses. Now, another good component is that it does give you the answer. It has, so this says write expressions that the cash register can use to determine the tax and total for any item. It says the tax is 0.07C, which means that is that 7% multiplied by the cost to find the total tax. And then the total would be 1.07C, which would give you the total. So those are your sample responses down at the bottom. It also gives you what you should be doing as a teacher. This is especially good for your new teachers or new to content teachers. So it says at this point for question 4, the teacher this is a great place to check students' progress on using repeated reasoning to write expressions for percents problems. And then it says it aligns with Mathematical Practice Standard 8, which offers individual support when needed or lead a whole class discussion if enough students are struggling. So you're about halfway through the lesson. You should be able to see if students are struggling with certain questions, if it's enough of them where you feel like you need to stop and do a whole group discussion, that's what you would do. Or if it's just enough to do a small group discussion, you can pull those students to the side or work with them individually one by one, depending on the time constraints. So this is if you were doing a whole group lesson. So now we're gonna go back to that home page for our tax and tip. And we're gonna go down here to, I'm sorry, not, oh yes, we're gonna go down here and now we have our paper resources. I like to use these to do mini lessons. It's all of the notes papers are pretty much between 3 and 4 questions. So this one right here, you can see it is 3 questions. It says, what is sales tax and tip? And it's got 2 questions that you can work out. So I like to use these as mini lessons or as closers, or you can even do these as a homework assignment if you feel like they need just a little bit more practice. They're not meant to be used as your sole purpose of teaching the lesson, but it does help to use as mini lessons if you feel like your student struggled the day before, and before moving on, we just need a little bit more time. You can pull these paper resources and use that. Moving along, also each lesson comes with practice problems. So you click practice problems here, and here are our practice problems. Now, these lessons are made for the students to do independently. So once you have done that teaching aspect, where you've done that whole group or that small group teaching aspect, you will assign the students the practice lesson. So you can see that this is practice lesson 8. And this unit, if you look alongside, has 13 practice lessons total. And so if we click preview, we can see each of our questions, and they align with your current standard. And sometimes they also throw in some review. So there might be questions from previous lessons that are in these practice problems, but it's always good for students to have that spiral effect. So you will see that sometimes the questions are not aligned with what you're working on, but that's okay, because they do get that spiral. And then a good thing about the practice questions is that students are able to see what they missed. So this is actually the exact screen that's on the end of every practice lesson. It has the problem, and then it has the feedback. The feedback will say correct or incorrect. And those questions that students got incorrect, they have an opportunity to go back and fix those problems before they decide that is their final component. I love this feature on Desmos because it allows students to go back and do that self-reflection and self-correction. And it's also good as a teacher because this is what you see when you put in your grade book. So therefore, it allows for quick grading to save time. You know, as teachers, our time seems to dwindle every year. So this is just a good, component to have. It allows students to do self-reflection, and it allows teachers to get a quick snapshot of, okay, if a lot of students miss number 2, maybe we should go back and look at, question 2. If everybody got question 1 correct, we can assume that they all have mastered that standard. And again, this would be assigned digitally if you are able to access this program digitally. My school currently is a 1-to-1 Chromebook school, so I do assign these assignments digitally to them, and they all have access to the Desmos platform as well. However, if you don't have digital access, every practice comes with a paper resource. It's the exact same questions, it's just done on paper. So a downside to this is that students don't get that self-reflection. So they're not able to see what they did wrong. And then the teacher does actually have to go and hand grade these. But it does come with an answer key. So I know sometimes if students, their Chromebook is broken or if it's dead, or towards the end of the year when they removed our Chromebooks, we used a lot of these paper copies, and I would keep an answer key on my desk. And I would allow students to, come ask me if they got a question correct before they finish the whole sheet and move on to the next question. So same concept, it's just a little bit more time consuming. And you will also see that each of these comes with an Explore. The Explore questions are typically those DOK4, those harder, more rigorous questions that some students might struggle with. But it does, tap into their critical thinking skills. And then each question also does come with a reflect. So, this reflect question says, circle a question that you are still unsure of, and then use the space below to ask one question you have or share something that you're proud of. So they're able to, self-reflect and see, do I really understand this standard, or should I ask my teacher for additional help or practice? And that's pretty much it, how to use this platform. It's very easy and it's very self-explanatory. Going back to the homepage, so since I am focusing on ratios, you saw that 7th grade had 2 ratio units on the platform. And then here we have Math 6, so 6th grade. And you can see right here, it also has 2 units as well. So Unit 2 is introducing ratios, and Unit 3 is also unit rates and percentages. So that is something that's also used in the ratios and proportions unit. Although our textbook does not focus on Math 8 for ratios and proportions, it still can be included, especially right here where we have Unit 2. The last part of Unit 2 says introducing slope. That is also a part of ratios and proportions. And then Unit 3 here, it says proportional and linear relationships. So even though the textbook is not focused on that, that still does continue into Math 8. And I hope you all enjoyed my presentation. That is it for the Desmos platforms. Thank you so much.